Oh, please. You're awful. Where did you find this?
On there, baby.
I'm trying to run away from this. I'm trying to retire from this.
I would run straight to it. It's wonderful.
Oh, my God.
Hi, my name is Todd Yohn, and I've been a comedian for 21 years.
Well, you're in
I wanna
studio
thank you
with
for
us
looking
now.
out.
21 years ago.
I'm looking forward to entertaining your organization with an
Who
hour
is
of
this handsome
clean,
devil?
thoughtful,
Oh,
hilarious
cut that
comedy
one off. That was
in your future.
that was my little front cover page for corporates where I'm wearing a golf shirt saying, hire me for your event and I'll talk about pussy.
For an hour and a half.
So do you ever come in on a Monday and your boss's pussy smells?
Wrote a little song about it. Want to hear it?
Oh, God.
Here it
Welcome
goes.
back. Here we are
Just
again
that.
for installment number 3 of the Dirty Old Hard Rock Show with Mr. Todd Yohn.
Yeah, we
Hey.
are going to dive into the meat, man.
Yes,
The meat.
indeed.
The dirty underside of comedy.
The underbelly.
The underbelly.
We're going to
The
throw it and it's going
lines.
to stick to the wall, baby.
Let's talk about, I'm going to say 2 words to you.
All right.
Oh,
Comedy condo.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you what.
Tell us about the good times and the bad times.
Some of the best and worst times of my comedy career were in a comedy
I
condo.
can imagine.
The cool times is when you get a nice condo that it's taken care of, where the comics respect it, and you're with another comic, so you can, go to and from the. You can play wingman for each other. One night, one guy drives, and the next night you drive, and you can cook. Save
Right.
money and stuff like that. But then there are other times where certain comics have taken liberties. That has ruined
With
it.
the mayonnaise.
And we'll just bring up his name because he was a good friend of mine. God rest his soul, John Fox.
Right.
John just struggled. He just passed recently. He was struggling.
Wasn't that old either, right?
He had prostate cancer.
Oh,
So,
okay. I didn't know that.
and struggled with it. But I'm going to tell you what, he's a great guy. He was one of the true characters of comedy, but he is legendary.
He wiped it on the curtain, didn't really.
for doing things in a condo that has stopped to this day without John even being alive. If you go to any comedy club in this country right now and go to the refrigerator, you will see 6 containers of mustard with various levels of mustard in them. You will see 8 ketchup bottles. You will see 1 mayonnaise jar, just one, and it's almost full.
Oh,
And you never
mayonnaise that I've ever had.
ever go to the ice tray. You buy a bag of ice and you leave whatever ice cubes are in the tray there. Because Mr. Fox thought it would be kind of a little chuckle one day to empty the ice cube tray and piss in them and leave them for the next comic.
Oh, my God.
And then
I haven't heard that one.
And then he left a wonderful surprise in a mayonnaise jar.
Yeah, I've heard that one.
An imprint, if you will.
Yeah.
To a fairly full mayonnaise jar.
He puts his helmet in there.
And because of that, it has put the fear of God in every comic known to man that unless
Even to
it
this
is
day.
in a can that has not been opened, you do not eat anything that's left in the comedy condo. Nothing. If it's been open, and that's why you will, most of the time, the comics will buy new mayonnaise, and they'll just take it with them.
Sure.
And because,
Save
but
money on the
I
road.
can't tell you how many times I've seen just container after container after container of mustard. Why the mustard? I don't know, but it's more prevalent than ketchup or anything.
There's got to be some opener though who don't know the rules.
Right.
Oh, dude, there's things where you
some
come in,
rookie.
you walk in the door,
Mustard is delicious.
and you see. I remember one time in Wichita, Kansas. We were staying in an apartment. The condo was an apartment, and there was a comedian that was there the week before. He's also a good friend of mine. I'm going to call him out. Mo Alexander. He's a big black guy, a huge black guy. Mo's got a kink. I mean, he's twisted, and which is why I love him. He's a brilliant comic, very funny, but he had some weird habits. And I remember walking into the bedroom, and on the floor was an orange gelatin molded candle, but not really, kind of surface in the carpet, just a big giant thing.
Right.
And and everybody knew Mo did it, and it went for 23 years. Nobody knew what that was, and it turns out it was a curl activator that had popped out of a can, and it made such a mess. He tried to mop it up, but he just spread it, and then over the week it was in the sunlight, and it hardened to almost, but not quite. It was like this glowing jelly orange looking.
Oh.
Right.
Orange looking pro.
Orange looking stuff, and so you'd find stuff like that. You'd find
what's the weirdest thing? You had to have found like a pair of drawers, or of course condoms, whatever. I mean, did you find anything that you're like, what in the hell?
Yeah, but
you don't want to go into detail.
I found things, and I knew who left them.
You're like, who was here last week, right?
You always find out because you want to know what happened to the bed and why the comforter looks like that.
Oh.
And let's put it this way. When I'm in a comedy condo, I never travel without slippers.
Yeah. Do you bring your own sheets, maybe?
No, not my own sheets. The sheets are good. It's the top cover.
Okay.
And I bring my own top. I've brought my own top cover before, just in certain condos.
Your wife's like, here, you're not sleeping all day. Here, take this.
Man, I'm going to tell you what. But, there's been all sorts of creepy stuff, man.
Well, see, we used to play down at Myrtle Beach years ago, back when you could make a lot of money, and we stayed in a bunch of band condos.
Sure,
and
the band
it's
house,
the same
man.
thing. Same
yeah,
thing.
I remember in Memphis, there was a place called Sir Laughs a Lot in Memphis. And I used to play that, and we used to have to walk down the street to the condo, which was a house, but it was more of a stop-off point, a rest area for cockroaches. And I mean lots and lots and lots of them, and big ones. And the last 2 times I played there, oddly enough, and this was a year apart, it snowed the only time that Memphis has ever seen snow, and I mean like 1.5 feet of snow in Memphis. And so I'll never forget this. The back bedroom was actually had a door that went out to like a little parking area behind the house. It was obviously like another living room or an entryway, and they turned it into a bedroom. And there was like a 3-inch crack at the bottom of the door. And I woke up at about 5 in the morning when it was snowing, and I get up to take a pee, and I'm up to my thighs in a snowdrift.
Jeez Louise.
It just blew right in, man. And,
wow.
And then I go to the can, and I flip on the switch, and a palmetto bug that was about the size of it was easily 2.5 inches, easily, and it just went, and flew on my rib cage, and I'm letting out this shriek. I'm like, ah!
Oh, God.
And I turned into like Toddy Woman.
I would have dropped a deuce right there.
Man, it was just like, ah!
I just, the bugs.
Those kind of roaches and palmetto bugs, you never kill them because 100 of them will come to the funeral.
Oh,
That's right. That's right.
So
he saw some old cockroach. He's like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He was pissed.
Now, a little off the subject. We've talked about musicians and comedians, and a friend of mine that I used to play with years ago, guitar player, has made that switch kind of the other way around. He's gone into doing comedy, and he's
God bless
pretty good from what I see on YouTube.
What's
his name is Doug Canny.
I know that name.
And I think I asked you about him one time before, and I think you said you knew him. But he went from being the smart mouth, quick-witted guitar guy, and now he said, "Screw those other guys. I'm just going on the road by myself and doing the comedy thing." And he's great. I mean, I know his material by heart. From playing with him for years.
when you're just starting into comedy, it's a blast.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a blast, and
it's probably just like anything else. Like with the band, it becomes
you get that adrenaline rush
especially when you don't have
laugh, and you don't know if they've had a crappy day, and they come in and you make them forget it for an hour and a half.
Sure,
that's the good part of the business.
Right.
But the long drives with your kids growing up, and you're missing first steps and proms, and dealing with club owners.
Did anybody ever try to stiff?
Well, he was already divorced.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh God.
Hello.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We live in America.
It might have been a little bit different in your world.
This is the U.S. of A.
But that's how I got a couple of TVs out of the condo.
You just took it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I said, you stiff me, I'll take some of yours.
Hell
But it's actually very rare. There's very few guys that'll stiff you.
And usually, if something like that happens, the other comedians they'll cue you in like, "Hey, don't."
Well, see, the problem is
place.
if the word gets out, you're done.
Yeah,
no one's going to work for you.
Yeah.
And what happens is that the grapevine is really, really quick and really strong with comics, and a lot of comics bring their own fan base, and if that word gets out, you've just lost a bunch of regulars that aren't going to come out anymore. So they don't really do it that much. There's still some seedy stuff going on. The thing that I'm not crazy about, and one of the other reasons why I got out of comedy, which is completely different than music, is the comedy industry is not as fraternal as music is.
Yeah. Really?
There's something about musicians and about playing music. Like before I got into comedy, if I was in a battle of the bands, and this actually happened, we were in a battle of the bands for a pretty good cash prize. This was in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we were going up against our arch rival band. We were Lace Rock and Roll. They were the Tumbling Dice. And we had a very strong rivalry. We were all friends, but I mean, when it came to playing, I mean, we wanted bragging rights, and we'd been in several together, and they'd win, and then we'd win, and then they'd win. I remember this one. This guy's hell of a guitar player, and his rig busted. I mean, I didn't have a replacement tube. Wow. And it was screwed up, and so they couldn't go because he was their only player. You know, they had keyboards. But I let him, use my rig because back then I was just pretty much a rhythm guitar player and very rarely used it. But even if I was a lead guitar player, I didn't want to win by default.
Yeah. Right, because they'd say, well, if it wasn't
and so we let them use the amp. They kicked our ass. They took all the money.
You could have said, well, if it wasn't for my amp.
And then they took us out. We blew it all on party substances and women. And they picked up the tab. And that's sort of that kind of sums up what music is about. It's about the music, man.
Yeah.
And if you play country, it doesn't matter. You're playing,
Right. Yeah.
Whereas what had happened with comedy is they got into these contests. And TV shows and Star Search and stuff like that. And what happened is it pitted you against your buddies to win the big prize, and then people got catty, and instead of helping out with writing, like, hey, why don't you try this tag?
Right?
It polarized us, and it got very cliquey and closed circled, where I'm not going to let you have any of my information type of stuff. And what's happened now is. And it's always been this way. The powers that be think that comedy only exists on the coastline. It's either L.A. or New York. But it's guys like me and your Tim Wilsons and your Ronnie Bullards and your Tim Cavanaugh and Rodney Carrington.
All great guys.
That we have our finger on the pulse of all of America, not just L.A. That's why like the TV show The Middle. It's about a show in Indiana.
Right.
It's one of NBC's most popular shows,
and
everything else sucks because they all do this reality stuff in L.A. This is what's going on in L.A. This is what's going on in New York. We don't give a shit about that.
Horrible.
I think I saw some of that today. Is that the one with the wife from Everybody Loves Ray?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's a funny show. Modern Family.
I saw some of it today.
Modern Family is
about the biggest shows on TV.
It's in L.A., but it strikes a nerve with what everybody goes through with dysfunctional families.
Yeah, it was so dysfunctional.
You got the gay couple. You got the older guy with the younger girl.
And so they had a daughter that they'll go out to L.A. and they'll go up to New York, and then they try to fit in the mold of an L.A. and New York guy to get their TV deal, and they come back to the road where they started. They're not funny anymore because they're doing this L.A. crap. And a lot of the young guys are doing this negative, tear things down, and it's venomous. And they'll come at people in the audience unprovoked. These people just came out to laugh and have a good time, and they're tearing them a new asshole. Yeah. And that's not comedy. And then I'd have to follow that crap, and I'm too old for that. Yeah.
You ever see somebody like a young comic up and coming, or maybe you heard about him or you've seen him or whatever, and you go, this guy's going to be like the new Carlin, or this guy's going to be the next, whatever. I don't know if you keep up with some of the new guys.
When I first saw Louis C.K.
Oh yeah.
The first time I saw him, I went, "Holy smokes!" I
really?
mean, that guy.
Even back then,
that guy is the shizzle.
Yeah.
I mean, he has ways of making things funny, just talking about things that affect him personally. But he does it in such a way where every comic I've talked to about Louis, it's just like, I know, I'm sitting there going, why didn't I think of that? It's right in front of my face.
Actually, getting divorced was the best thing that ever happened to him as far as career. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he took off.
But he's brilliant. There's a kid coming up. His name's Jared Harris. And if you see that name, he's redheaded with glasses, and that has nothing to do with it. This kid gets it. He worked. Yeah. He came down when I had a little piece of a comedy club down in Myrtle Beach. He came down. We only had 10 people in the audience. Now most kids, and I call them kids because I'm older and I'm long in the tooth in this industry. And most kids that would see 10 people would tank the show. And a lot of young people came, and we had small crowds. And
like
they did
we
just
did
that.
last week.
And he came out. He does a lot of character voices and faces and. He worked them and worked them and worked them and did like an hour and 20 for 10 people.
And won them over.
And never quit. And I just went, man.
He gets it.
And he does get it. He's living in Atlanta now, I think, and goes out to L.A. quite a bit. He did Craig Ferguson. I don't know if you saw him, but
love that show.
The funniest bit he does, he does a Korean, I think it's a Cantonese woman singing The Girl from Ipanema in karaoke. And he comes out and he starts moving his neck like side to side, and he's going, and he's doing it, but his face, he's just so into it. And instead of just starting out like that, he sings the entire song.
Wow.
He totally commits to it because and he gets into it and absolutely
he's just building it the whole time.
And because he commits to it, rather than getting tired of it by the time he's midway through it, you want more and more and more. And he did it on Craig Ferguson and slammed it. But there's a lot of guys that get it, a lot of really good guys that get it, and I'd like to see more of that.
That's great.
Pass the torch.
Now, I mentioned earlier George Carlin. Did you ever get to meet the late great George Carlin?
I got so many.
You got a great George Carlin story?
Met him. I was doing Comedy Stop at the Tropicana in Las Vegas, and he was doing his show, and he just popped in, just to say hey. It was Sunday, and here's Carlin, and my comedy's nothing like his, but I mean George Carlin is George Carlin. He's a legend.
Well, he was a writer on the Tonight Show years ago, wasn't he?
Yeah, anybody that can do 4 HBO specials
consecutively,
4 hours of material. I mean, come on. And be fresh. But he came back. He was cool as all get out. We just, for the only time it ever happened that I was at the Comedy Stop at the Trop, we were dark on Monday. And he invited us to his show. And so we go backstage, and he's getting ready. And he's just cool. He's just like us sitting here. He's just cool. There's no bravado. It's George, and he's talking shop. And so it's time for the show. We let him get his game face on. We go. We've got 10th row center. And he comes out, and he starts off, and the crowd is going absolutely.
Oh, yeah. He just takes the stage, and they go crazy.
And then he gets about 25 minutes in, and he starts talking politics.
Okay.
And he loses the room. I mean, to the point you could hear not only crickets, you could hear nose hairs wiggling.
Wow.
Quiet.
Yeah.
Now, instead of coming, what's wrong with you people? You're not hip enough to get my stuff. He just keeps going. And he does 7 or 8 minutes to silence. To death. He'd just move one, he'd pause, he'd just kind of nod, and then he'd walk across the stage, get to the next thing. After 8 minutes, and I'm starting to do the shrinking, you're shrinking down. This is my hero.
Yeah.
And he finally stops, and he just kind of laughs. He goes, well, I can see that the politics isn't your cup of tea. He goes, let's move on to something that's not so sensitive. Let's talk religion.
Ooh.
And proceeds
and we know how he stands on that.
Another 10 minutes of religion to death. To absolute death. So a total of 18 minutes, which is an eternity on stage of silence, unfazed, unfettered, no sweat, nothing.
Because he's George Carlin.
George Carlin, his black T-shirt and his black pants and his hair
slick back.
He
had the ponytail back then.
And with the occasional chin and the eyebrow up. Yeah. And it was George, and I'm just going. And all of a sudden I came up in my seat because I realized this This is comedic genius, where he's so committed to his material,
Yeah.
and believes in it so much. It's really past the point of whether you dig it or not.
Yeah.
He digs it.
Well, he knows
Yeah.
it's good, yeah.
So he comes out of that. He stops abruptly out of religion, goes right into the hippy dippy weatherman,
Oh, okay.
and the place goes
Yeah.
crazy. He starts doing the jumbo shrimp. Is that a large shrimp or a
Yeah.
small jumbo? And all this stuff, and all the stuff that people were familiar with, to the point that they're in a frenzy. He closes out his set, gets a standing ovation and an encore.
Wow.
After 18 minutes of death in the middle, he climbs out, and that taught me more.
I wonder if a lot of people know that he's going to have certain things that he talks about that not everybody's going to like or they're going to get, and he doesn't care. He's going to get through it anyway.
Or was he
and then
working
he's going to
that
get back.
material? Like maybe, fine tuning it for.
That's the whole thing about George. That's the brilliance of it. You didn't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
There's a lot
Maybe
of
that's the
stuff
first time
through
he
the
did
years.
that.
He would
There's
just
a
come
lot
out
of
and
stuff
speak
that
his mind.
He
and
did
not
through the
care.
years that I didn't even know he did, and I only found out 10 years after he did it. So
Yeah.
I knew there was stuff that I hadn't heard, but I didn't know. But you couldn't tell because
Right.
he wasn't.
Yeah.
There was no tell to let you know that was going on.
I would
It
see
was
him come
brilliant.
on Bill Maher and he would just tear those politicians to pieces.
Yeah, well,
when he would start his speech.
He's sorely missed because he was quite the sounding board of, of the common man.
And there at
What a
the end,
career,
he would
too.
say things like, for example, years from now, and he would explain the way things are going to be. And they say, well, George, do you think that it's going to be this, this, this? And he would always say, well, I don't have a dog in this fight. And he just kept saying that over and over.
Yeah.
And he was suggesting he obviously wasn't going to be around
Yeah.
for it. So
Yeah.
it didn't matter to him.
Yeah,
But, sorely missed the late,
man.
great George Carlin.
great guy.
When
Great
we
guy.
get back, I got a question. You've had, like you said, you met tons and tons of
Yeah.
comedians. There's got to be one guy out there that you was like, man, I can't wait to meet this guy. And when you did, kind of meet your hero kind of thing, and he turned out to be a dick.
Yeah,
There's
You mean
gotta
like
be
when he met
one.
us tonight?
Well, he knew we were dicks.
I got a couple.
You don't even have to mention names.
I
I mean,
got-
you
I tell you what, just think about it,
Yeah,
and
save
then when we
it.
come
We'll
back,
come back.
yeah.
and we'll come back and we'll do that because I would love to hear that. We will be right back with Mr. Todd Yohn. This is Dirty Overhaul Rock Show.